Good afternoon and welcome to Beyond the Lines podcast. I'm your host, Nikki Watson, and welcome. What day is it today? Today is Thursday. Happy Thursday. My son was just texting me about putting money on his lunch account. So that's snap, right? Yes. So welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. Be sure to like and subscribe. We're going to get into some stuff today related to, what's his name? Epstein. Is that how you say it? Is that how everybody is saying it? Is everybody saying it in a different way? I have to say that XF had on Lorenzo, I don't know his full name, forgive me, on his live stream, his audio only editions yesterday. And he's always so informative, and I love to hear his perspective. And he was saying Epstein. So I'm not sure if I'm saying it incorrect or what is the correct pronunciation. I'm sure people want to call him other things, right, than his name. So maybe it doesn't even matter. But we're going to get into a little bit of that today. A lot going on in the world. It's been, I actually don't think that we did a full recording. I know Karen and I were on, was that even like 2 weeks ago? Good Lord. I'm actually going to jump on Grace's podcast, Quantum Nurse, at 1:00. So I'm really excited about that because she is hosting the world's renowned Alex Craner, and they're going to be talking about some good stuff. With her roundtables are always so fun. Well, they're not really roundtables. They're like a host, and then there's like other, she has a co-host and then other guests that she brings on. So I'm so excited and honored to be able to participate in that. And so that will be at 1:00. So we have a hard stop for that. So yeah, so we didn't even really get into talking about Minneapolis. There's so much going on. We have, let's see here. We're going to do a little bit of a screen sharing here. And I know that there was with Iran and a strike. What's going on with that? Does anybody want to include that in the comments? If you're watching this on the replay, please like and subscribe. We are streaming live to YouTube. We're also streaming to Rumble, which we have been on Rumble for about 3 years now. And what is going on, guys? Is everybody waking up? What is happening? I think that's sort of a little bit of the craziest thing. So basically in November, what was brought to Trump's desk was this Epstein Transparency Act, right? And it was in November of last year that it was brought to his desk, right? Because the Democrats were all, release the Epstein files. And we're all like, huh? What? Like, this has been a thing for years now. Why are the Democrats all of a sudden showing an interest in the Epstein files at this point? But we saw our county committee was crowdfunding for a billboard that said, release the Epstein files. I mean, this was their whole marketing slogan. So they were putting so much pressure on, well, seemingly pressure on Congress to release the Epstein files. Why wouldn't they do that in the Biden? Why wouldn't the Biden DOJ have an invested interest in releasing the Epstein files? Why are they putting so much pressure on the Trump DOJ to release the Epstein files? Because that's what, I don't even think Trump, did Trump run on releasing the Epstein files? I mean, he definitely ran on justice, law and order, and ending the corruption and, saving the children. However, I'm not really sure release the Epstein files was actually part of the rhetoric. So anyway, Big win for the Democrats because they were able to slip their, they don't have a majority at all, yet there seemed to be this, effort to, again, okay, right, this law for the Epstein Transparency Act that went to Trump's desk. He signed it. Okay, so is Trump part of the campaign to release the Epstein files? He signed it. So big win, Democrats. And now that based on per the law, now the DOJ released it. They redacted a bunch of stuff. I guess there's 6,000 pages and they released 3,000 pages, something like that. You know that there are trials, like there are court cases going on related to victims right now. Okay. So they're not going to release documents that are going to impede their current investigations. You know what I mean? Like the release is for public consumption, transparency. If the media all of a sudden now cares, right? Because we can go back to the 2021 The Atlantic article that said that child trafficking was just some sort of conspiracy theory. So the media, if they care, they can pick it up and do their own research and do their own digging and do their own investigative, whatever they do. Well, not a certain percentage of the Washington Post reporters, because they all got laid off today, right? So anyway, if the media cares about it, they can pick it up, right? Citizen journalists, whatever. But there's not going to be any sort of, any sort of cases or investigations that the DOJ is going to do based on the files that they already saw and have had and went ahead and released for the public, not for them, because they already knew it. And so, what is going to be done? What is going to be done? Well, again, so thankful for Lorenzo's take and his research that he provided yesterday. He was talking because he's from Italy and he's talking about Europe and he's talking about London, the UK. Like the disclosure of those documents really is putting people in the public eye, right? All about Bill Gates. We got to learn a little bit about Bill Gates, a little bit more. So much so that his wife, or his ex-wife rather, Melinda, had to go out there and be like, oh, I remember being that age. That was such a creepy interview, right? So we did learn a lot about his acquaintances and sort of the relationships and the emails and stuff like that. So we're seeing a lot of, or rather I am, you can let me know in the comments if you are as well, that people are, on this show, sorry about this little piece here too. This is like bothering me, this little piece here. Okay. On this show, we like to look at different narratives and what people are saying, right? So I like to see what people are putting on, Facebook, what people are putting out there. It's been super, super fascinating to watch the social media messaging related to ICE and Minnesota. So we'll do like a lot of what we've done here too is we'll watch videos and really talk about the fascism claims, right? There's a lot of that being thrown around, and it has been, right? So with the No Kings protest, there was a lot of authoritarianism. And we went into this with Richardson, Heather Cox Richardson, the great historian. We also like to deconstruct her videos. And if you go back to some of our past episodes, you can join in on the fun. And so the No Kings protests had a lot of that, right? What are you doing here, ma'am? Oh, we're fighting fascism, rising authoritarianism. And in Richardson, it's like, well, it's not fascism. It's rising fascism. It's authoritarianism. Is it fascism? We've reached the point of fascism, but it may not be fascism yet. She does this whole thing all the time. We track it. Okay. So it's interesting to see people that are seemingly well-intentioned, not so much well-informed, but sort of like informed within their own echo chambers in a way. I don't know what people are doing, to be honest with you. This is annoying me. I don't know. I don't know what people are thinking, you know? I tend to not have a ton of in-person conversations about these topics because either my interactions with my sort of good acquaintances or, you know, my people in the community, friends, you know, it's really like, we're not talking about stuff like that. We're talking about, you know, hey, how's it going? You know, we do the whole Anglo-Saxon, you know, how's the weather? We do a lot of the weather. You know, we do just a sort of like, you're hanging in there, I'm hanging in there too. Nice to see you. You know, nice to see you're still hanging in there too. You know, just stuff like that. Which whatever is fine. And these are winter months, okay? I think that when the weather does break, people are out there a little bit, you know, maybe you have a little bit more time for some longer conversations and such. So I'm really going off of, my metric is social media, the internet, because that's where the information war is. That's where people are getting their messaging. A lot of this is the No Kings, and this is something that we've established already, the No Kings, the anti-ICE protests, a lot of it is top down, or rather all of it is top down messaging. You don't have people grassroots saying, this is fascism. You have it top down messaging saying, this is fascism. And then people are like, oh, this is fascism. And then you have people going out there protesting. Now, is, you know, are there real things going on out there that we saw, you know, as much as the internet allows us to? Absolutely. So is there validation, vindication for people that are consuming the messaging? Absolutely. That's a lot of what we go over here, because we're looking to see what in the heck is going on and where are people getting their ideas and where are people being compelled. And a lot of what we talk about too is that, you know, and XF goes into this because of his past and because of his experience. And I appreciate his experience so much because of how he comes from the left, but the language and the intellectualism and the education that is related to all of these different concepts that have to do with civil disobedience, that have to do with, you know, these revolutions and what is resistance and what is activism and all this stuff. You know, I didn't grow up with that language or that experience at all. And I didn't even really learn it in school in the context of being able to look at it now and how we can look at it and apply it now and learn from it and see how words are weaponized, concepts are weaponized, right? Rhetoric activating people to go out and vote, right? If things aren't affecting people personally, right? If they don't have this invested interest in outcome, or their personal backs are not up against the wall, there has to be this manufactured activity, right? There has to be manufactured outrage and chaos and reason for people to go out in the streets, for people to be activated, for people to organize, for people to vote, because it inevitably comes down to voting. It inevitably comes down. If you follow the messaging, donate now and be sure to vote. Okay. Even people that say stuff that you don't, necessarily agree with. Well, rather, another thing we track here are the, I'm trying to categorize it. So if you are new here, we can kind of put words to things and frame things. The anti-imperialist, libertarian, progressive crowd online. Okay. Commentators, content creators, YouTubers. They will maybe talk shit on Democrats all day or whatever. They think that they're speaking truth to power and they think that they're holding the regime accountable, whatever. And then at the end of the day, it's we'll vote blue no matter who, right? Okay. And if you are into that, you may love this mess, like that. You may love that. You may agree with that. Okay. But what we're doing is we're separating out the hypocrisy that you can't be saying what you're saying with integrity and then continue to toe the party line. Okay. So this show is definitely called Beyond the Lines Podcast. And, the Republican Party has already undergone a transformation. Okay. They kind of like swooped in. MAGA sort of like swooped in. Here's why. Because they had an elite faction backing them that was in conflict with the other elites. Okay, because there's an inter-elite conflict going on. Now, what the Democrats have been doing for so long is they have been betraying their progressive and actual old left constituents. Okay, the groups that they were supposed to be going to bat for. The liberals and the Democrat Party basically fucked the rest of their constituency and they said, we're doing this. Okay. So if those sweet little anti-imperialists and progressives would have done what MAGA did years ago, we might be in a different spot in the United States. So you can blame Donald Trump all you want, but he had the cojones. Okay. There's nobody on the Democrat side that had the cojones. And they're still searching for it. They're trying to roll out all these people onto us, like Newsom and Josh Shapiro. Like, what are you guys? You guys want this political revolution. You're trying to co-opt MAGA. You can't. You're trying to do, and so I guess for me, it's so fascinating to watch the progressive alt media act like they're some sort of rebels who speak truth to power, speaking to the regime, right? Standing up, fuck the oligarchy, speaking to elites. When you guys had all this time to do, you guys fucked it up because you are crappy people, sort of. Hey, none of us are perfect. Okay. None of us are perfect. But if you drink the Kool-Aid, right? If you drink the Kool-Aid and you start to, benefit from the system that you claim to be, trying to, break down or try to rein in or try to so you guys really screwed up. So I could see why you don't like Trump. You see why you got the bulwark. Look what take a page out of JD Vance's book. Okay, he was anti-Trump. Okay, look at him now. So progressives are never going to get the revolution that they so-called want, which now we're curious do they actually really want that? And they probably maybe don't. They just want the attention and the money, and they just, it's a lifestyle. They don't care. So, but that's what happened. Is that MAGA had the support of elite team B, who was fighting with elite team A. So the Republican Party has already undergone their transformation. So you can talk shit on MAGA, whatever that is. Everybody wants to say MAGA this, MAGA that. It's just making America great again. So everybody wants to talk shit on this coalition when, they were able to succeed doing something. So the reason this all started was because of the Epstein. The reason I brought all this up is because now I'm seeing people on Facebook post like, so what are we going to do now? Who's going to hold these people accountable? Trump's, a pedo and a convicted felon. Right? So who's going to hold these people accountable? What are we going to do? And it's like, babe, sis, what do you think has been going on? like really genuinely, what do you think has been going on? So for me, in 2020, I saw, this is my origin story, okay? So everything got shut down. It was Friday the 13th, right? Friday the 13th. No, was it? Okay, I thought it was March 10th. I'll have to check my calendar to see if the dates lined up. So when they shut everything down, remember? They just shut everything down, school's canceled and school might stay canceled and all this stuff. So that was mid-March. It was at the end of March that I saw Mr. Nino's, David Rodriguez's, and you'll see how this all comes together. And this might be similar to your story. I saw his viral video, right, on Facebook. And it was such a classic, but times have changed so much, right? Because that was 2020, but it's 2026. But we still compartmentalize these moments in time where because of these things that we went through, right? So it's almost like when you find something out, or you hear good news, or you hear bad news, or you just hear shocking news or whatever, you sort of remember where you were, right? And so I saw his viral video where he's just sitting there, and it's a classic viral video because it's super casual and it seems spontaneous, and he is he's a charismatic character, and you're just like, what is this? And he was talking about the movie Into the Shadows with Mike, what's his name, who directed the film, who had come out of Hollywood, and he was like, these pedophiles are going down, right? It was just this, he spoke with such clarity and conviction. And I think at this time he was just starting his sobriety, right? Remember? So just the way that he was talking, it was it just clicked, right? And it's what is going on? And then everything happened with COVID and everything and all the shutdowns. And then it really started to sink in that there was, you don't want to talk about an interleague conflict. It really started to click in that on a state level, there were huge conflicts about what was going on. That some states were, not shutting down all the way. And, our state there was the whole thing with putting the positive patients back in the government run nursing homes. So it became political. And I had never been really political So it's not like I knew, I couldn't read the room. All I knew was that it was becoming political, though, because it was like, well, the Democrats were doing this overt thing and the Republicans were doing something different. That became obvious to somebody who didn't know anything about politics. And so you had people that rose to the occasion and they were like, something's going on here. Like something is wrong here. And then you had like DeSantis down in Florida. I think it was in May when they announced that schools were going to be shut down for the rest of the year or whatever. And then the mask mandates. I mean, I think it was like a couple weeks, 4 weeks, something where we were like, but then I feel like once April hit and we started, then we're like, are we still doing the mask thing? Like it was not that long. And then it just was so just trauma, horrible what they did, not letting people bury their loved ones, people dying alone, just the worst things that we all had to just walk through, just so, And then all the stuff with the masks and stuff, right? Well, we started learning about the child trafficking and how it was related to masks and how, then we got into like the Operation Underground Railroad where we were seeing like, this is real. Like there's like actual law enforcement that are organized around these investigations and these rescues. Like this is actually a real thing. It's not just some, I know it got connected to like the conspiracy theories, but then the media started to just completely discredit it. So then you became like this renegade if you were like even talking about it. Like, are you tapping into this horrible thing that none of us knew was going on? And then Trump was related to it too, right? And so it's crazy because though we've never really had we've never had a president, we've never had politicians speak so openly about human trafficking before. And actually, in fact, I will say in February of 2020, there was was it a virtual presentation? What was it? Or were they they were creating awareness within the Republican Party within the state. They were creating awareness about human trafficking because Pennsylvania, I think, is like number 4 or something out of the top 10 states of child trafficking. And so a lot of this awareness was occurring around this time. And it was just really interesting that was sort of set right in February. And so then I think that there was another one. There started to become more awareness with the sheriffs and the, these virtual presentations of awareness for human trafficking, for child trafficking specifically. But a lot of the trafficking too, the statistics and the things that they talk about is like domestic violence, but also, trafficking, people like labor trafficking, people that are not from this country, right? So we really started to get all that rolled out onto us and got like a little bit of a crash course in it in time for, everything that we came to learn about immigration. So the Trump voter has been like receiving this information. Now, I guess I could talk to, I guess at this point I could probably reach out to some of my friends who, don't like Trump. And I could be like, hey, so like, were you aware of this? And did you just like disregard it? Or, because for me, it didn't have anything to do with Trump. It just had to do with information and how it was all sort of coming together related to the pandemic, related to the mask mandates. And then when the jab was rolled out, that all worked. And don't forget, guys, in California, in the San Francisco, where's their, the capital at? In California. Remember this was like, was it the beginning of March or the end of February, where they were trying to get rid of, the state legislature was trying to get rid of medical exemptions for vaccines. I am on YouTube. Oh my God. I forgot. I forgot. We'll see. Have mercy on me. Have mercy on me, guys. We'll see. So that whole thing happened where, remember, they were like at the Capitol, and people were out there protesting because they were about to pass this law about getting rid of medical exemption. So all that happened. You know what? I really think that was in March. I have to go back and look if I can find it, the clips, because then the shutdown happened. And then when it was related to the virus and stuff. And so people were like, is this related to like the vaccine program? Because there's been this huge movement. Not only was California trying to get rid of the medical exemptions by adding it to the law, there was also this just critical mass when it came to information and awareness, the stuff that Del Bigtree was doing, that Bobby Kennedy was doing, right? So if you were like on this track, like just because it affected you, you get looped in. And like, for me, it was such a shock what was going on, like that they were shutting down schools. Like, they don't just shut down schools. And I was far less, I'm far more educated and involved and connected with the district now, to where this would be a different ballgame. I might have been able to, but at the time I was just up along my merry way. I think my oldest was in 6th grade, So, and my son was at the time, I think he was 3 at the time, or he was just turning 3. And so I was just real involved with his care. Like, this just came as such a shock. My daughter was in kindergarten. So that was shocking because she didn't get to finish out her, and this is the story that everybody has, is like, they didn't get to finish out their senior year. They didn't, whatever their losses were, and it was just so unprecedented and so shocking. And it wasn't just like, this is all being canceled. It was like, oh, we all might die. And then it's like, okay, well, maybe we're not going to die, but maybe like our family members are going to die, and we have to like not see them, and we can't touch them. And like, it was just, you were all there. It was the strangest thing. So from a susceptibility, vulnerable perspective, I often relate it to like prenatal diagnosis, or just even being pregnant, or even being sick. When you're in a vulnerable state, you're more receptive to like authority bias, like you're more susceptible to authority bias. So like, when, considering the situation and then seeing the viral video from Nino, it clicked. And I'm like, oh, this all makes sense. Like, that makes perfect sense. And then it wasn't just him. And then you watch the documentary, and then you kind of go into what we call the rabbit hole, and you dig around, and you do as much as you can take, because it's like, just, again, it's almost like, what, we're already shocked. Might as well just keep going. We're already all fucked up, like, just keep going. It was almost validating in a way, right? Where it was like, oh, so things are so crazy and disorienting that this is the most likely and most sensical thing. It just all made sense. So, but it, it wasn't just conspiratorial. There was actually just, you can look into it yourself, go into it. And then again, learning about Epstein and all that stuff. And that was all part of it. So the fact that all this stuff came out now with Epstein is like not a shock to our system. This is like, just, what everybody already knows. So it's interesting to watch a demographic of people go through this experience where they are being really awakened, right? It's the awakening. And for people to catch up, but not just catch up, but to have their own experience with it. So then you're going to see some stuff about like, Trump, and a lot of what we're seeing is falling, it's just adding to people's derangement about Trump, is like, well, how can he still stay in office if he is, and so they don't, I guess, understand that some of the documents are, Trump was not, what is the word of how they say it, that it was not verifiable, it was uncredible. And then you learn about Michael Wolff, whose emails with Epstein came out through the Democrats, whatever they were doing, whatever they forced or whatever, an email release. Was it like in October of last year, an email release that the Democrats forced or something that showed Michael Wolff's relationship with Epstein? Michael Wolff is a writer. His relationship with Epstein. So he documented about 100 hours, in his words, about 100 hours and 30 sessions worth of a video recording with Epstein. He sometimes met him. He says that he met him at a restaurant. He met him at where else? In his place, at his place in New York, and then I think twice at his place in Paris. And this was all like after 2008. This was like in 2014. So this was like after his conviction, it all came out about him. And like Wolff even admits that Epstein would say, like, I like young girls. And Wolff said, I actually included this in my Telegram, a post, because I found this interview with Michael Wolff and somebody else on Substack. And this is all quotes from Michael Wolff. And he said something like, well, why don't you just say I like young women or something like. So Wolff was validating that Epstein, like, that he knew that that had these proclivities, like that this was the type of person, that this was the things that he was doing. So why would Michael Wolff continue? Anyway, there was going to be an interview with CNN and Trump in 2015, and Michael Wolff let Epstein know, and this is what Trump is saying, that this is how they basically colluded against him. There was a conspiracy against him because Michael Wolff, was not, he presented himself as just somebody who was like interviewing Epstein. But then the emails that came out, that the Democrats forced, the emails came out, showed that there was like, Wolff was essentially advising Epstein on what to say. It came out that, Epstein really wanted to get Trump. And, Trump has said, like, I don't, I never really liked him. And there is stuff in there that's really, that like has someone saying stuff about Trump, but, anybody can say anything about anyone. And it's really interesting, though, to think, what if Trump, I don't know, like, what if Trump was like, do you think Trump didn't know about Epstein? And it's just so crazy that after all this time, and people want to be like, about Trump. Like, guys. And they're like defending Bill Clinton, because I know they're using the thing with Trump defending, like Trump saying, like, I like Bill, right? That viral video of like Trump being like, I like Bill. And they're like, oh, he's trying to throw Bill under the bus. So it's like, on one hand, the anti-Trumpers want to say, like, we got to gather up the pedophiles. And then on the other hand, they're like, but they're going to throw Bill Clinton under the bus. Oh, they're like, and aside from Bill Clinton, that he already has like a deviant, like confirmed history while he was president. You know what I mean? Like, and what about the whole thing with Hillary and the girl that claimed that Bill, was that a trial? Do you remember that? What was that related to? Like Hillary saying she was like basically dismissing the girls that were claiming that Bill had sexually assaulted them, right? Or raped them. I mean, she was dismissing that. There was like audio that came out about that. And this is, we're not even getting into like the Save the Children hashtag and the organization in Haiti. I mean, guys, so all I'm saying is that we're just looking at the hypocrisy, okay? We're just looking at the hypocrisy. And I just find it super fascinating that the Democrats even ran on release the Epstein files. And now you have people on Facebook saying like, our government's run on our government's run by a bunch of pedophiles. Our government's run by a bunch of billionaire elite pedophiles. Like, and then I'm like, you know what? Pick your propaganda. Pick your propaganda, because y'all are fucked, okay? You guys don't even get good propaganda. Now Kamala Harris is turning her Kamala headquarters into just headquarters, and it's going to be a place where you can find a bunch of bullshit about Democrat candidates and what's upcoming, what's new. Yeah. SM 2049 says, yeah, like Paula Jones. Exactly. I can't stand when people try to make Epstein a left and right issue. It's crazy, dude. It's crazy. And like, maybe that's a really good point to bring up, is that, and I even said it organically myself, is that, and this is how I feel about the Republican Party. It's like, and people will say this, like, the Democrat Party, I didn't leave the Democrat Party. The Democrat Party left me. I didn't choose the Republican Party. Like, they were literally, during COVID, they were the only party that was saying, like, we're not going to, you can wear a mask if you want to, but we're not going to force people to wear masks. And the Republicans have been the only party that has defended vaccine exemptions, while the Democrats have been pushing to take them away. So on that issue alone, so you want to question MAGA, you want to question Maha, you want to question Bobby Kennedy, like, you have to learn people's origin story. You have to understand where people are coming from, where people come from. Okay? And I'm here to tell you that the deciding issue, the dividing issue, because that is going to affect you personally, what you put into your children's body, when we're already exposed to all this information about the vaccines, and people can have their own informed consent. We talk about informed consent in the birth community. We talk about informed consent with pharmaceuticals and the placebo effect. So this is not novel. This is not, informed consent isn't a conspiracy theory either, by the way. It's crazy. Neither is the placebo effect. So the Republicans were the ones that were defending, the freedom, okay, on these specific issues. And so, yes, so SM 2049 says, I can't stand when people try to make Epstein a left and right issue. The child trafficking was not a political issue. It was not a left or right issue. It was an everybody issue, and it still is. But something that we could all agree on. And we weren't saying, like, we were just like, let's like talk about this, or like, can we get a little support here? Like, what's going on here? It was the Democrat and the media, the Democrat and the legacy media, that was saying everybody's a conspiracy theorist if this is what you're talking about. They were the one that they weren't doing any education. They weren't doing any advocacy for good, like, in good faith. They were only demonizing the information that they were trying to censor and suppress. This is all came out. This is all collusion. You want to talk about fascism, right? The Biden administration colluded with big tech to censor people that even talked about masks, talked about jabs, talked about anything, right? In the name of public health, you weren't allowed to talk about it. So anybody that talked about child trafficking, anybody that talked about elections, anybody, I know we're on YouTube, sorry YouTube, anybody that talked about any of these things, Epstein or whatever, you were like demonized. Like, it wasn't even like, let's look at the issues. It was like, it's already like, there's no argument here. It was just demonizing, censoring, silencing, shaming, right? There was no open debate. And this is why it's great that Elon bought Twitter, because what happened, sadly, is that dissent was shunned away. And so there was no back and forth conversation. So it was just this echo chamber of like no ability to throw anything else against the wall. And so everybody really got stuck in their narratives and their echo chambers related to stuff with the pandemic, right? There was no other side to the story. Now we're having the experience where we're seeing other sides of the story, and it almost in some ways it is being exemplified in a way, being exaggerated. I don't know if those are the right words. The narrative warfare is getting even more overt and vicious with the open discourse, because those who want to go down that sort of extreme path of belief in, that like you're saving democracy or whatever, right? Like the Heather Cox Richardson echo chamber. It's concerning because it seems though that even with different opinions, it's still being pushed onto people from people like Richardson. They are still being, it's being jammed down their throat that it is a political issue and that we're not, but then sometimes they'll be like, well, it's a human rights issue. I've heard them say that all the time, right? It's a human rights issue, the immigrant. It's like, yeah, of course it's a human rights issue, but not in the way that you're presenting it. You know what I mean? Like, so a lot of different belief systems, but we have to understand where people are coming from to be able to understand where they're coming from. We have we have to understand the origin of ideas. We have to understand where ideas are coming from and who is promulgating them and where is your actual pain. So you have to go through this process. I actually did go through this conversation. It was a little bit painful, probably a lot painful, with my daughter who's 18, and just some of the stuff she was seeing and on the internet, and some of the stuff that was coming up for her, and just having to go through this in real life, sort of still a simulation, however, of like, tell me more about that, going through like, at your core, what is the problem, or what do you actually believe at your core? And, does this actually make sense? And unraveling all of that, really just peeling back the layers, right? To really understand where people are coming from. And that's why it's sort of like, and on one hand, I know I'm jumping around here a lot. Sorry. This is just my venting, I suppose. On one hand, you could say like, okay, so people say about that, with MAGA and like Trump, and like everybody believes what Trump says and everybody just listens to what he says, and, they don't think for themselves. And it's like, people know that Trump is like, people don't trust what Trump says because he's telling the truth. Like, people know that Trump doesn't always tell the truth. Like, he is in a very high level, serious situation. He's juggling a lot of balls. He's talking to a lot of people at the same time. Okay. That's why I did the whole fake news and all this stuff. So people don't just take what he's saying at face value, and they're not doing this like whatever Trump says, blah, blah, blah. Okay. They are thinking about the situation with all of this as an understanding and history and baggage. You have to understand, people that have been on this road, like I may have just sort of woken up in 2020, but some people have been with Trump since 2016. Maybe even before that, when they started to people that have been involved in politics for much longer, right? So to just say that, yeah, but the thing is that with someone like Richardson, right, who's doing this, like, I'm a historian, I'm this old withered lady who's like super credible, and like people listen and believe what she's saying, and that's where it's, I think, just super concerning and dangerous, because, do some people just want to get that sort of fan fiction fetish, anti-Trump bedtime story? Yeah. But I think that there's a certain percentage of people that like genuinely believe it. And even if they start to maybe pull away and the wool is lifted up over their eyes, they're like, she's like luring people back in, because she's like, I'm going to give you like this historical story. And then I'm going to say that, like, the Trump administration is trying to usher in white supremacy. Stephen Miller, all this stuff, right? SM 2049 says, I'm not still under any illusions that democracy can be saved or represents anything other than failed elite-driven projects. Right. So I think democracy has been not what the Democrats at least want to say it's been for a really long time. It's just that the only reason they have a problem with it now is because they're not in power. They still have power, but they're not like in power. They're not the Trump administration. So, I mean, we'll see. I'm certainly optimistic. I think a lot of the stuff with DNI Gabbard coming out, I mean, I think that if anything, the Epstein, the response, right? Because it's not just about what it is. It's like, it's the response. What are people saying about it? This is a lot for Europe, as Lorenzo shared with us. This is a lot of awareness that's coming out now. So what are how is the dust going to settle on that, and how it's going to keep going? And then we have just, all this stuff that has been so much of the story for so long. Again, the election, stuff like that. We'll see. We're not in World War, we're not in nuclear war now, thank God. I was very thankful to join Grace on one of her last podcasts, hosting Tim Kirby. I think I reshared that on Rumble. And Tim and Drago were talking about the posture that the Biden administration was taking against Russia, and just that there was no communication, and that I don't think people realize, just based on XF's work and the geopolitical analysis and stuff, I don't think people realize, and even with like Hillary Clinton, Joaquin talks a lot about this too, I don't think people realize how close this other faction wants to push, nuclear war, right? So that's it. There's so many positive things with the national security strategy document that the White House put out a couple months ago, or however long now. There's so many positive things that are happening related to actual security and safety. And it looks like a shit show now to some people. And it is a shit show, but there's a lot of things to be optimistic about. And it's almost like you don't know how bad, and that's how we are as human beings, is like, we don't know how bad it could have been, like we think about all the things that like didn't happen, I mean, there's a lot of things that didn't happen that could have happened. And it's just like, so thankful that we live to tell the tale, that we continue to go on, and we can, I mean, things definitely turned a corner. Our kids get older, we just move on with life, and we just, I think it all sort of stems back too from maybe the kind of person you are. And I think that that's what the awakening affords us, is the opportunity to sort of come to spiritual terms with a lot of this stuff, and realize that the resistance is an internal battle, and that this is all about recognizing our pain and our trauma and our internal conditions, so that we're not able to be activated for these political purposes in service of the elites, right? When we talk about that. And so that's why I do focus on like the Democrat messaging, and I do focus on like what people are saying on Facebook, because it's like, you are a good person, you have a golden heart, like you mean well, but you're falling for this. And why is that? A lot of it has to do with our pain and our trauma, and just our belief systems and our preconceived notions and stuff. And so, yeah, it's fascinating, but we're continuing to go on, and I feel so fortunate to be able to continue to, live and breathe and take it one day at a time. And so I am optimistic, but SM is saying failed elite driven products. And I think products, why am I keep saying products, projects? I think that the thing to realize too, and I'm going to have to wrap up here because I got to jump on Grace's show. But the thing about that is that we have to realize that elite projects do fail, right? And sometimes, or oftentimes rather, what we see, and this is what Joaquin refers to as the gargoyle effect, is that even when their plans failed, they have to save face. So they have to act like they planned this, or this was the idea all along, or like, so when you see that you think people are flexing, or you think something like that, it's really important to recognize that resistance is not futile, and that elite plans are just plans, right? Nothing is set in stone. Nothing is like, inevitable. And, one of the sayings over the years has been that God wins, and, that is where I think the awakening is also related to like that spiritual component, is that, that recognizing our internal condition, and again, having a relationship with God, and recognizing that, good wins. So I think that that's, link the next show, please. Oh, yes. I will link the next show. All right, I'll do that real quick. I know that she's going to be telling me to come on here now. I'm coming, Grace. I'm coming. Let me just link it here. Share. Copy. Can you guys get that? Yeah. It's actually, if you go to Rumble and you go to Quantum Nurse. So just go into Rumble, Quantum Nurse, and it starts in 3 minutes. So I'm going to jump off there. Thank you, SM, for joining us today. Thank you for everybody for watching. I really appreciate it. Please like and subscribe. And yes, thank you so much for joining me today. And I will catch you next time.